Yahusha, living water, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuah. Yahusha, living water, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuah. I sing out with praise to you. Your name is beautiful to me, my King. I sing out with praise to you. My heart desires to honor you, my Yahweh. I sing out with praise to you, Yahusha, living Torah, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuah. Yahusha, living Torah, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuah. I sing out with praise to you. Your name is beautiful to me, my King. I sing out with praise to you. My heart desires to honor you, my Yah. I'll sing out with praise to you, Yahusha, living Torah, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuah. Baruch haba Hashem Yahuah. Baruch haba Hashem Yahuah. Baruch haba Hashem Yahuah.
Israel. Yahuah, our Elohim. Yahuah is one. And you shall love Yahuah your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart. And you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. The second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commands hangs all the Torah and the prophets. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to the Netzarim channel. Place to get to know Yahuah better and pursue to know Yahuah. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Shabbat. It's that simple. Today is going on Yom Shabbat, the day of rest, Yahuwah's day of rest, a day of delight, a day of celebration. And I know we're all glad to see the Shabbat here, the weekly Shabbat. We have a really interesting study, I think, this week. It's going to be talking about the day of Yahuwah and the return of Yahusha. So is the day of Yahuwah and the return of Yahusha the same event? And we're going to get a look at that this evening. And so it ought to turn out to be fairly interesting to most. I think most of us love to study scriptural prophecy. It's one of my favorite subjects for sure. And so we get to do that this evening. But before we get started, let me go over here and say hello to a few people that came early into the chat room. And we'll acknowledge them and their attendance and their participation, as it's much appreciated by me, by you, and I'm sure by Yahuwah. Here we go. Sister Sandra Brunston, Shema. Shema means hear in Hebrew. Welcome, Sister Sandra. Sharon. Glad you're here, Sister Sharon. Shabbat Shalom. In case you know what I'm doing, I'm saying hi to the people, and then I'm reading their post. Okay, that's what I'm doing. Brother Levi Davis. Welcome, Brother Levi. Shalom. Brother Raul Koto. Shalom, familia. Welcome, Brother Raul. I'll see. I don't know. I'm going to go out on a limb here. Take a wild stab at it. I'm on this assume. And you know what happens when we assume, right? 99% of the time we're wrong. But I'm going to go ahead and assume anyway that Sister Yami Koto is also present and watching. So welcome, Sister Yami. Yahuwah is love 7. Welcome. Yahuwah is love 7. Shabbat Shalom. Brother Jeremiah, welcome. Shabbat Shalom. Brother Lou, Sister Phyllis, welcome. Shabbat Shalom. Brother Joseph Hessen, welcome, Brother Joseph. Shalom Mishpach. Welcome, Brother Joseph. Lorana Maran. Welcome, Sister Lorana Maran. Shabbat Shalom. Brother Phil Dickey. Welcome, Brother Phil. Baruch haba b'shem Yahuah. Sister Rose Wright. Welcome, Sister Rose. Shabbat Shalom. Netzarim Mishpaka. Sister Peggy Russell. Welcome, Sister Peggy. Baruch haba b'shem Yahuah. Praise Yahuah. Brother Carlton Rushing. Welcome, Brother Carlton. Yahuah's blessings, everyone. Giselda Calderia. Welcome, Sister Giselda. Shabbat Shalom, Netzarim family. Thanks to Yahuah for bringing us together. WL. Welcome, WL. Baruch haba b'shem Yahuah. Sister Jocelyn Stewart Bagley. Welcome, Sister Jocelyn. Wow, the 6 days of work went by so fast. Shabbat. Praise Yahusha for this gift. So happy to be here with my family in Yahuah. Yeah, really, Sister Jocelyn, the days is flying by anymore. I just can't believe how quickly time goes now. Something else. Brother Yahudru. Welcome, Brother Yahudru. Baruch Yahuah to all my family. Kate Connell. Welcome, Sister Kate. Shabbat Shalom Mishpaka. Mr. Three Jobs. Welcome, Brother John. Shabbat Shalom. I'm late. Had a phone switched. Brandon Gardner. Welcome, Brother Brandon. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. All righty. If I missed anybody, sorry about that. You know I didn't intend to, although I've been known to. It's never something I do intentionally because, you know, you're all welcome here all the time, every time, anytime on the Netzarim channel. And we glad that y'all come and watch every week and study along with us every week in the scriptures of truth. And that's the way it should be. And that's the way it is. Okay, so if I missed anyone, welcome anyway. All righty. So here we go. I thought this was kind of an interesting little study here about the day of Yahuah and the return of Yahusha. And if there was any type of proof that, they were the same thing. And I think, with a little bit of reading and studying and some common sense applied, that we can all figure this out fairly reasonably and simply. I don't think it's something that's too hard to understand. And I believe personally that Yahusha wants us to know when he's going to return. I don't think he's leaving us blind or ignorant to when he's coming back. I think it's been his intentions all along to reveal to his people, his chosen, his devoted, if you will, when he's going to return. And so with that said, I think it's something that we should seek out and dedicate some study time to, and at least to try to come up with an understanding of what it is, and to realize that these two main events that really end the 6,000 years a lot of cases of mankind to rule over himself come at the same time. So can we say that these events are the same exact event? Probably not. Okay? But they do come at the same time. And so I know I'm guilty of it. I say, day of Yahuah and the return of Yahusha is the same thing. And in a way, that's right, it is. But to be more specific and precise, probably best to say they're not the exact same event, but they happen at the same time. Okay, would probably be more accurate and less confusing for people. Okay, and I think that's what I kind of would like to, interject here and suggest this evening, that maybe we should try to be more clear on that, because like I said, I know I'm guilty of it myself. And so the day of Yahuah is scattered all through Scripture, so we're not going to have a hard time defining what that is. Okay, finding the definition for it and what that event means and what happens. It's going to be very obvious. It's because it's referenced quite a bit throughout Scripture. Now, the return of Yahusha, or the second coming of the Messiah, happens at the same time, but I think we have to say it's a different event, because the day of Yahuah is a day of darkness, day of gloom and doom, day of darkness, something that we're not supposed to look forward to. Okay, but the return of Yahusha is the coming back of the Messiah to the earth to reign for a millennium with his people. Okay, so you see, in that sense, the events are different, but they happen at the same time. Okay, so that's what I would like us to hopefully at the end of this evening's study, we're all going to get a better understanding of that. Okay, that's what the goal is anyway. Okay. All righty. So we'll go ahead and get started on this now. I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cheat just a little bit. And I'm going to piggyback on Brother Lou's writing here. See this, the coming sudden destruction here. And I'm going to piggyback on that at first. And because I think there's some pretty good points in there. If y'all have that track, please, find it and open it up and read along with me. If you don't, if you've never seen it before, or if you don't know how to get those, they're free of charge. They don't charge you anything for them. You can go on to TorahZone.net and get any of these tracks for free that you want. And you just place an order for them, just like you're buying something, but you don't pay for it. So when you get to checkout, you don't pay any money, but then you get the tracks at the end of the checkout, and then you can download them, you can print them off, however you want to do there. Okay, but they're free. Those of you that have that track, break it out, read along. Anthony Rivera, glad to see you on here, my brother. Hope all's well with you and yours. Okay. Then after that, we'll go ahead and we'll get into the scriptures of truth fairly deeply here, okay? And it should be a very, very fun and interesting study, so stick around. Hi, JJ Lot. Glad you made it, sister. Shabbat shalom, mashpaka. Glad you made it, Anthony Rivera. Good evening, my brother and all. Poltrix, Mine Z144. Glad you are here. Shabbat shalom. All righty. Ike Clark. I almost missed you. Snuck in there on me. Glad to see you here, Brother Ike. Shabbat shalom to all. Brother Ike, y'all try to make it tomorrow. Come on into the chat. We're going to have a special guest speaker on tomorrow on the Netzarim, during the Netzarim Assembly Scripture Study Group. And I will announce that special speaker that we're going to have tomorrow. At the end of this study, I'll go ahead and announce who that will be. And hopefully we'll see a lot of you there. Okay, but for now, back to our study for this evening, the day of Yahuah and the return of Yahusha. Is it the same event? Is it the same thing? Okay, let's begin with this track right here. All right, so the coming sudden destruction. They know it's going to happen. So it sounds a little bit spooky, doesn't it? Right off the get-go, it freaks us out. We're like, whoa, sudden destruction. What's that all about? And it's definitely something that we don't want to look forward to. Let's just put it that way. Sister Yummy Japan Netzarim. Shabbat shalom, Netzarim, everyone. Welcome, Yummy. Glad you're here, Japan Netzarim. Always glad to see you. So here we go. The coming destruction. They know it's going to happen. Speaking of the scientists, of course, those who study these type of things. Now, there's going to be a possible solar flare that will be much stronger than any solar flare that we're used to. I mean, that's going to be a possibility. Possibly, according to this, 10,000 times the strength of what we've ever experienced before. But this super flare is not something that's going to exterminate the human race. Okay, if we do get a super flare, this would be more of taking out the electric grids and all the electronics and high-tech AI stuff we have, and just plunging us back into the dark ages, basically. For a while. Could last several months, 6 months, maybe a year or two before we get everything back and running again. Here in Amos 3:7, it states that Yahuah does no matter unless he reveals his secret to his servants, the prophets. And these scientists and these government officials around the world, they have drilled down into the earth with these humongous drill bits and created tunnels and rooms and so forth and so on, and even made underground military bases that do exist for in case of this sudden destruction does happen. Okay. So the governments around the world have been making preparations for a multitude of possible scenarios that may be catastrophic to the human existence. Okay, so this would include many things. Okay, a super solar flare, a supernova, a dwarf, the sun turned into a dwarf star or a giant star, even nuclear war would drive them down into these existing tunnels. And so they're preparing for just about any type of destruction that would come our way, to where these government officials and these selected few would be able to hurry up and get underground into these underground bases and escape from the coming disaster. Yeah, they have these now. It's kind of, you kind of wonder about that and everything, but the big drills they have, man, they can really drill deep and far. Used to be, before all this technology, they used to hand dig these, and they had them back in the day. Okay, back in the World War I era, and even before that, they had people have been digging and living underground and for a long time, probably since the beginning of time, after the flood for sure. But everybody knows that China, underneath Hong Kong, there's tunnels. There's places under there that people actually live, and they go down there and they do the drugs they do down there. They have these type of tunnels and rooms that were hand dug now underneath San Francisco, and a lot of different other places, New York and other places as well, that they hand dug. And so back in between World War I and World War II, they actually found a lot of these opium dens, mostly under Chinatown in the American cities, where they were actually going down through secret doorways and so forth, so on, under the ground to these opium dens and smoking their opium. So this stuff has existed for a long time. And over in Germany, when I was over there in the military, we actually visited a place over there in Berchtesgaden, Garmisch area in Germany, that was right there by Eagle's Nest, which was the headquarters of Hitler. And he had a place way up on top of this Needle Point mountain, and it looked really like a needle point. It really did. Eagle's Nest, they called it. But anyways, down in the town, there was a tunnel complex that went underground, and we were allowed to go in there. And so we went in, and as we went down into this tunnel, it had concrete steps, and it went down, and then for quite a ways, and it hit this landing, and then it made a 90-degree turn, and it went down farther to another landing, and then it took another turn and went down to another flat area and through a door, and there was all kinds of underground tunnels, bunkers, and rooms, and so forth and so on. And so at each one of these different levels, there was holes, like 3 to 6 holes cut in the wall, where they had machine guns pointing up the stairs, so that if anybody was going to come down the stairs, they could shoot them with machine gun fire, right? And back during World War II, it was pretty deep. I don't remember how deep it was, and it was really long. I mean, we didn't even get to the end of that tunnel. We did go into some of the rooms. But back during World War II, the Americans invaded that. They did find that tunnel, and they overtook it. And there was a safe down there that the Americans captured, and they blew it up and got into the safe. And anyway, there was all kinds of different supplies down there, enough for a long time, for quite a few people to hide under there, and for quite a long while, due to the food and water supplies and all the different supplies that were hidden underground there in that tunnel network. So that was there, and that was mostly concrete. The walls, everything, and the doors were solid steel. I mean, it was amazing that the humans could actually do that. And then we've probably all seen these different movies where, prisoners tunnel into the ground out of the encampment or the prison, and they can sometimes for miles underground, and then come up, and then they can go through the tunnels and they escape, right? And amazing. You say, well, man, how in the world did they make them tunnels? And in a lot of cases with spoons and by hand. Just mind blowing what humanity, what a human can do when they put their mind to it, and they're persistent with it and determined. Be surprised what humans can do. And then we probably have all heard about the tunnel network in Vietnam, which was a mind-blowing tunnel network underneath that country. Was just something that was unbelievable. And so all dug by hand, by humans. So anyways, they have these deep underground bases that do exist now. And so efforts to preserve humanity after severe coronal mass injections, nuclear war, asteroid collisions, among other disasters, are on the increase. I'm reading this track now, in case you're wondering. Interplanetary bases are being planned, like onto Mars, on the moon, into Mars. And there are dozens of doomsday seed banks around the world where they're protecting and storing seed in case of a total worldwide disaster that totally wipes out the vegetation, that we can grow it back. So, including Antarctica and Norway. Since the 1950s, the military industrial complex has more secret projects each year. Deep underground military bases called NUMS. NUMS, deep underground military bases, NUM. Connected by extensive railway systems, have been tunneled into the crust of the planet. They know we will soon face an extinction level event. We know it as the day of Yahuah. The scripture describes it as the day of Yahuah. Of course, if you read into one of the English translations, it's the day of LORD, is what they call it. But it's still in there. So the inevitable global extinction of mankind is described for us in the scriptures of truth. So let's examine some of the avoided texts that support the fact that the whole earth will be laid waste by fire from the sun and close like a trap on the whole earth, just as the days of Noah, but this time, instead of water, it will be fire. Now, I'm just going to interject here real quickly and say, not every single human is going to die. Okay, the first time around when Yahuah did this partial extinction, he delivered 8. There were 8 humans that were kept alive, and those 8 humans were able to repopulate the world after the flood receded. Okay, so we're not going to see a total extinction 100%. All right, but it's going to be close. It's going to be close. Okay, now there's a passage in Yeshayahu or Isaiah 13, 6 through 9 that sounds like this. How? For the day of Yahuah, the Yom of Yahuah, is near. It comes as a destruction from the Almighty, Al Shaddai. Therefore, all hands go limp, every man's heart melts, and they shall be afraid. Pangs and sorrows take hold of them. They are in pain as in Asha and labor. So the sun will burn men with great heat. All right. They are amazed at one another, their faces aflame. See, Yom Yahuah is coming fierce with wrath and heat of displeasure to lay the eretz waste and destroy its sinners from it. Okay, now, here's one thing I want to point out right here for all of you so that you can understand what's going on here. There's a lot of ways that Scripture describes men burning, okay? But there's a lot of ways that a man can burn. You know, solar flare, when the sun goes out and then reignites the intense heat of that, nuclear warheads, even a conventional bomb. If you're close enough to it, when it goes off, it can fry you from the heat that's put off. Obviously you could get caught in a fire, just a forest fire, right? Or a field fire. If you get caught in that, you're going to fry too, aren't you? Sure you will. You catch on fire, you're going to burn up. So there's a lot of things going on here. But when you see this particular phrase in Scripture that says the day of Yahuah, okay, see, Yom Yahuah is coming. See, day of Yahuah is coming. When you see that, any reference to the day of Yahuah, you can pretty much bank on this is talking about the sun, being scorched by the sun. And generally, the way that's going to happen is not necessarily a solar flare that is going to take out the electric grids, okay, but a nova where the sun goes out, it's extinguished, okay, and then all of a sudden it reignites and then sends intense heat toward the earth, so great a heat that it catches everything on fire and just basically burns the earth. Now, I think because, and I'm going to get into this later on, but it seems to me that since Scripture and Yahuah promises a restoration in the 1,000-year millennium rest, that the burning of the earth, okay, is going to be part of that restoration. Okay. And the reason I'm saying that is because some of you may already know, or some of you maybe haven't even heard of it, but there's a thing down here in Texas they call controlled burning. And what that is they intentionally will set a field on fire. Okay. And they will burn that field. And when they're done, okay, there's hardly any time at all goes by, and the new grass starts coming up, and it's the most beautiful field you've ever seen in your life after they burn it and it grows back. It don't take long. Okay, so I'm thinking, this is just my opinion, that Yahuah can do anything he wants to, anyhow he wants to do it, right? Any way he wants to do it. But I'm just saying, it seems to me that when the earth burns, it's going to be part of that restoration where it's going to all come back beautiful and green again, especially when Yahuah restores the atmosphere and makes everything back the way it was before the flood, pre-flood time, before the flood happened. And so that would be the restoration. Because what is restoration? Well, restoration is returning something back to its original condition. And so we have to look back before the flood in order to see the earth in its original condition. So that would be the restoration time. It'd have to be back to that in order to be a true restoration or renewal, if you will. Same thing. Okay. And then into Luke 21, and we're going to go into these verses a little bit deeper as we read through this as well. But in Luke 21, it says, and I think Luke 21, 5 and 6. Let me look that up real quick. It's not right on that track. So yeah, Luke 21. Probably, I don't know. I have 17 through 28, but it don't matter. We'll get there. Luke 21, it says, and there shall be signs in the sun and moon and stars, and on the earths anxiety of goyim, which would be the goyim would be the Gentiles or the nations. So you have Yisrael, and then you have the Goyim. So all the other nations of the world is the Goyim. All of them, except for Yisrael. And they're set apart. They're the set apart nation, the chosen, okay? So in bewilderment at the roaring of the sea and agitation, men fainting from fear and the expectation of what is coming on the Eretz. For the powers of the Shemayim shall be shaken. The atmosphere will be ripped away, and the elements are going to melt. Okay, so this is huge. A huge event here. So this is the day of Yahuah. You see what I'm saying? So it's the day of Yahuah and the return of Yahusha, the same exact event. They happen at the same time, but they're not the exact same event. So you picking up what I'm laying down now? I know it's we're y'all used to saying, day of Yahuah, return of Yahusha, same thing. And it is, in a way, because it's the same events that leads up to the millennium reign. What would be the point for Yahusha to come back to a world that there was nobody existed? Nobody, there was nobody alive, and it was totally destroyed. There wouldn't be any reason for him to do it. So why is he coming back? Well, first of all, he's coming back in order to cut the day short for the sake of the elect, his chosen that are going to be alive at the time. So he's going to deliver them from this great burning. That's one reason. Another reason is because there's going to be some people left. And those people are going to be the ones that are going to inhabit the world, and they're going to repopulate it. Now, even if it's 8 people, there was the same exact amount that would happen after the flood with Noah and his family, right? They still repopulated the planet. In 500 years, the world was heavily populated. And so in that time period that it took for them to repopulate Babylon to happen, and Noah saw the Tower of Babel. He saw the creation of Babylon and the building of the Tower of Babel, and he saw their languages compounded and confused. Okay, but there was a lot of people, man. That's the point. And during a restored, perfect, almost near perfect world, people are going to be able to repopulate this world very rapidly. So Malachi 4:1-6 says, "For look, a day shall come burning like a furnace, and all the proud and every lawless one shall be stubble. And the day that shall come shall burn them up, said Yahuah Sabaoth, which leaves to them neither root nor branch. But to you who fear my name, the servant of obedience shall arise with healing in his wings. And you shall go out and leap for joy like calves from the stall. And you shall trample the lawless ones, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet. On the Yom that I do this, said Yahuah Sabaoth. Remember the Torah of Moshe, my servant, which I commanded him in Koreb for all Yisrael, laws and directives. See, I am sending you Aliyah, or Elijah, the prophet, before the coming of the great and awesome Yom of Yahuah." Okay, so that's talking about the day of Yahuah. So we know this is talking about a sun, something going to happen to the sun and the moon and the stars. Okay, so this isn't a nuclear bomb. There's a lot of cases where we read it and it kind of seems like it's talking about the day of Yahuah, but it's not. It's talking about either World War III or Armageddon and nuclear detonation, pretty much having the same effects on the humanity as a nova would, sun nova. See what I'm saying? So we need to be able to determine that, although I don't think it's something that's crucial that you understand and know. But if you can determine, if you're keen enough, you understand scriptures enough to where you can read it and say, oh, that's not the day of Yahuah. That's talking about Armageddon and a nuclear blast. It's destroying these men by fire. Then you have a better understanding of the scriptures of truth, and you can't go wrong with that. The better you understand scriptures, the better off you are. Okay. All right. So let's continue on here. "And he shall turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earths with utter destruction." Oh boy. So utter destruction means wipe us out. No chance of coming back. Yeah, that would be horrific. So then we have another writing here in 2 Peter 3:10. And it says, in the present Shemaim and the Eretz, the heaven and the earth, are treasured up by the same word, being kept for fire, to a yom, for a day, of judgment and destruction of wicked men. Okay, so the heaven, the Shemaim, and the earth are treasured up by the same word, by Yahuah, okay, being kept for fire. So it's reserved to be burnt, basically, okay? And so the earth has an appointed time that it's going to be burnt up. And like I said, in my opinion, it's going to be part of the restoration. Because look, you got the day of Yahuah, got the return of Yahusha, then you have the millennium reign. And so where's the restoration at? It has to be mixed right in there as well. So it can't be before the day of Yahuah. So I think it comes after the day of Yahuah, the restoration, because of the fire. The earth is restored back to its original condition, with a little bit of help by Yahuah, of course, because the sky, or the Shemaim, is going to be destroyed too. So it has to be renewed. So if the ideology in Genesis that the earth at one time had a canopy of water surrounded it, protecting it from the rays of the sun, okay, and that's why that everything lived a long time, because we were protected from the UV rays and the damaging rays of the sun coming down and aging us, right, and burning things up. So that would have to be restored as well in order to go back into a restoration of the original condition. See what I'm saying? With a little bit of help from Yahuah and burning of the earth and it growing back very quickly. It gets back to its original condition. That's when the restoration takes place. And Yahuah, of course, can do anything he wants. He's all powerful. So he can speed up the process if he wants to. He can take the time element out of it and speed the process up, make it happen in a day if he wants to. Where say if he just let it go, maybe it would take 100 years to restore on its own, but he speeds up the process, takes the time element out of it, and allows it to restore itself in one day. Of course, Yahuah can do that. Of course he can. So here we have the heavens will pass away with a roar, the sky, okay? So Doomsday Seed Vault in Norway is a forbidden place. Nobody's allowed to go there. It's off limits, forbidden. The sun drives all our weather. A solar coronal mass injection is from a nova or a super flare will end life as we know it. Speaking of the electric grids, as far as that goes, that super flare. But there's a picture, if you don't have this, of the Doomsday Seed Vault in Norway. That would be the entrance to it. There's preparations to hide from this fiery wrath coming from Yahuah, the day of Yahuah. And these people are drilling with these huge drill bits and tunneling, giant tunneling with these, making giant tunnels with these giant drill bits. And here's a picture of it. This is a drill bit. They're able to create these doomsday hideaways, if you will. So Revelation 16:8-9. In my opinion, now, this isn't talking about the day of Yahuah. This Revelation 16:8-9 is speaking of Armageddon and the nuclear blast. Let me read it. And the fourth messenger poured out his bowl on the sun. It mentions the sun, and so that's why we can get tripped up. And it was given to him to burn men with fire. And men were burned with great heat, and they blasphemed the name of Yahuah, who possesses authority over these plagues. Okay, so to me, this is speaking of a nuclear blast, because Revelation 16 is the whole thing, is the short version of the revelation of the second coming of Yahusha. And so Revelation 16 is all about Armageddon, the entire chapter. So this would not fit in the day of Yahuah, and then I'll show you why. I know it mentions the sun. But you got to remember, man, John, Paul, Peter, none of them had the ability to name the things they were seeing. They didn't know what they were seeing, much less how to explain it or define it or put words to it. And so they were just using words that they had available to them at the time. And let me show you something here. I'm going to do a share screen. My favorite thing to do, as you all know. And look at this baby. Okay. So say John saw this. What would he call it, man? He has no words. He has no understanding of what he's seeing here. Kind of looks like a sun, doesn't it? Of course it does. So in Revelation 16, where we're seeing this at in 8 and 9 here, it's the fourth messenger. There's 7 bowls. Okay, so he poured out the bowl on the sun, and it was given to him to burn men with fire. This is a nuke, because this is Armageddon. The men were burned with great heat, and they blasphemed the name of Yahuah, possesses authority over these plagues. And they did not repent to give him esteem. They weren't denied. They weren't destroyed yet. Okay, they were poisoned with the radiations, what they were. Look, the 5th messenger, the 6th messenger. See, life goes on. You see that? Life is going on. The 6th messenger poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates. Its water was dried up in order to prepare the way of the sovereigns from the east. And so this would be the world army descending or ascending to Jerusalem at the second coming of Yahusha. They get there just a little bit before him. They arrive in Jerusalem. See what I'm saying? This is all about Armageddon. And the 4th one would be basically in the middle of the events leading up to it. So then the 7th messenger in verse 17 says, poured out his bowl into the air, and a loud voice came out of the temple of the heaven from the throne saying, it's done. Meaning men's rule's done. Okay. And then comes the day of Yahuah, in verse 18, the conclusion to this story, to these events. And there came to be noises and thunders and lightnings. There came to be a great earthquake, such as mighty great earthquake as had not come to be since men were on the arets. So that's the conclusion. That's the day of Yahuah. Okay. And then he comes back with a few more things, an earthquake, and then he talks about hail. Great hail from the heaven fell upon men, every hailstone about the weight of a talent, which is about 125 pounds, by the way. And men blasphemed Yahuah for the plague of the hail, because that plague was exceedingly great. Okay, so there you go. The day of Yahuah is in verse 18, not over here in verse 8 and 9. It's all about Armageddon and nuclear. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. You got, once we can decipher what's going on, you can see whether or not it's talking about the day of Yahuah or World War III or the tribulation years or Armageddon. All these things have to happen too before the day of Yahuah. Before the day of Yahuah. Think about that. And we're going to go over this a little bit, but Isaiah says there's going to be a few men left after the day of Yahuah. After the flood, there was only 8 people left after the flood. Zechariah talks about 1/3 will be refined and 2/3 will be cut off and killed. Revelations 7 talks about a war coming that's going to kill 1/3 of mankind. Started from an army of 200 million soldiers. And then we got Armageddon. Then we have tribulation. We have Armageddon all in there. So I'll tell you what. By the time the day of Yahuah gets here, there's not going to be a whole lot of people anyway to be destroyed by that supernova, the sun going nova. Most of mankind going to be wiped out by then. By World War III, by the Satan, the anti-Messiah during the tribulation years, and by Armageddon. The population of humanity is going to dwindle down to hardly anything by the time the day of Yahuah shows up. So that's what I'm saying. I think the burning of the earth and the Shemayim is part of the restoration. He's going to finish it. He's going to finish it. We're going to mess it up severely with World War III, tribulation years, and Armageddon. We're going to have it all messed up really bad. I mean, even leading up to that, look how polluted the world is. Look at the pollution. Have you ever thought about the pollution? Have you ever read about the pollution of the world? Our oceans are regurgitating the trash that they dump into it every day. And it's going out and coming up onto these islands, especially the Philippines. It's horrible. Horrible what's going on. The pollution of the water, the air, and the land is crazy. Even before any of this happens. We're not very good stewardess of this planet. For sure, we're not. So anyway, that's my opinion on that. And so, like I said, if we can, just figure it out, the more, the better defined we can get and precise that we can get in all these events, and we can get all these events isolated to where we know what we're talking about, even though they sound the same, they're really not. Then we can get a whole lot better understanding of the scriptures of truth and get to know Yahuah better. So then we go on here, still on this track, to Isaiah 24, 1 through 6. It says, see, Yahuah is making the Eretz empty, making it waste, and shall overturn its surface. Doesn't that sound like restoration? Overturn the surface. And shall scatter abroad its inhabitants. And it shall be as with the people, so with the priest, so as with the servant, so with his master, as with the female servant, so with her mistress, as with the buyer, so with the seller, as with the lender, so with the borrower, as with the creditor, so with the debtor. Eretz is completely emptied and utterly plundered. For Yahuah has spoken this word. The Eretz shall mourn and wither. The world shall languish and wither. The haughty people of the Eretz shall languish. For the Eretz has been defiled under its inhabitants, because they have transgressed the Torah, changed the law, broken the everlasting covenant. Therefore a curse shall consume the Eretz, and those who dwell in it be punished. Therefore the inhabitants of the Eretz shall be burned, and few men shall be left. Okay, so that's very scary thing, isn't it? Repent, the reign of Yahuah draws near. So I'm going to get into scripture here now, but before I do, I'm going to read this last little thing here on this track, okay? It says, those doing the will of Yahuah will enter into the coming reign for the rest, the millennium rest. Yahusha will say, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who work lawlessness. If you are seeking for the truth, you will not find it by associating with people taught to disobey, or meet at a sun pillar, which is a steeple that's on the circus house. Men's philosophies have made the world believe lies. But now it's time to wake up. Learn that which is pleasing to Yahusha. Yahusha is coming soon. Men's traditions cannot help you. So Google the name Yahusha. There is only one name to call on, spoken about in Acts 4:12, and that name is Yahusha. Okay? All right. So there's that track. And again, this is the name of it, if you want to get it and study it. It's a real good track. It's a nice little track, full of information. Okay, so now let's go get into the scripture. But before we do, let me elaborate just a little bit on that last thing we just read. Okay, so look, men love to follow traditions, and it's a way that men are able to control other men through traditions. And nationalism is part of it, and some other things. But mainly, what I want to say is, if you're in a religion of any kind, I don't care what you call yourselves, get out of that religion. Why? Because religions are based on traditions. And traditions are based on falsehood. It's just a way and how they can control you, control the masses. That's it, man. So you don't need to join a religion in order to be delivered. But you do need to call on the only name in the Shemaim or on the Eretz that can deliver you, and that's Yahusha. You need to know that. And joining these different religions, they're going to tell you that there's different names that you can call on for deliverance. And there's not. Why? Because all this ideology about an Elohim is the one true living Elohim with one name that you can call on for deliverance is how they come up with all this other religious stuff. And so they just elaborate on that. They build on that, and they lead people astray by stretching that out and building on it with falsehood. Because there has to be some truth involved, or nobody's going to listen and follow along. People ain't that dumb. But to build on the truth and extend it with falsehood to the point where everything's masqueraded and hidden in plain sight, they can control a lot of people that way. And that's called religion. So get out of it, man. Get out of it. There's no right religion. There is no right church. That's silly. There's no true church. There's no true religion. They're all false. They're all wrong. Don't believe that. Get out of them. Stay out of them. No religion is required. No tradition is required to worship your Creator. The only thing that's required is for you to know Him. Meaning, and that includes knowing His name and pursuing to know Him. He wants you to get to know Him on a deep, deep level, a relationship that's very deep, and where you know Him and He knows you on a deep level. That's what He wants. He doesn't want you to join some religion, a made-up religion about Him, and call Him by a different name. That's not what He's looking for. Okay, so now let's go ahead and turn back to tonight's study and into Scripture. And I guess let's start right back where we left off at Isaiah 24. Isaiah 24, 1 through 6. Okay, so far, we haven't heard a whole lot about the return of Yahusha, but we will. We will. Just hang in there. So Isaiah 24, 1 through 6. You see what I'm saying? There's so much stuff here about the day of Yahuah. There's no way you can overlook it or doubt it or not believe it. I mean, it's everywhere in Scripture. Matter of fact, almost every prophet talks about it. So Isaiah 24, 1 through 6 says, see Yahuah is making the Eretz empty and making it waste, and shall overturn its surface. and shall scatter abroad its inhabitants. And it shall be as with the people, so with the priest, as with the servant, so with his master, as with the female servant, so with her mistress, so with the buyer, so with the seller, as with the lender, so with the borrower, as with the creditor, so with the debtor. The eretz is completely emptied and utterly plundered. For Yahuah has spoken this word. The eretz shall mourn and wither, the world shall languish and wither. The haughty people of the eretz shall languish. For the eretz has been defiled under its inhabitants, because they have transgressed the truth, changed the law, broken the everlasting covenant. Therefore, a curse shall consume the eretz, the earth, and those who dwell in it be punished. Therefore, the inhabitants of the earth, the eretz, shall be burned, and few men shall be left. All right. So here we see the day of Yahuah. That's what this is all about. This isn't about nuclear weapons. This is about the day of Yahuah. Okay. This day is not something to look forward to, folks. This is something we're not going to sit there and be happy about it and look forward to it. I can't wait till the day of Yahuah, till all my enemies, those people that were mocking me and beating me up in junior high school, or get burnt, and they're going to get theirs when Yahuah's going to burn them up. I just can't wait. This is not something we should be talking like that. Nothing we shouldn't be looking forward to this. Okay. But notice very few men be left after the day of Yahuah. And so this isn't just the day of Yahuah, man, that's going to take a chunk out of humanity. Okay. We have a war, World War III, is going to kill 1/3 of mankind. Now, in most wars, you're going to have the people are going to get killed. They're going to die, right? By whatever reason, either by bullets or grenades or mortars or artilleries or bombs or missiles or nukes or biological warfare, chemical warfare, whatever. Ran over by a vehicle, catch some disease, such as typhoid or malaria or something, and die. Maybe not even get killed by the enemy, but by a bug, or a snake bit or something, But you have the people that die. They're going to get killed, okay? And then you have the people that are going to be wounded, or they're going to be, say, crippled, or they're going to be catch some kind of disease, or whatever happens to them. There's a lot of crazy stuff happens to people in war other than being killed. Of course, wounded being the biggest thing. So in all the wars, when they take into consideration those who have died and those who have been wounded, or something else, some other type of thing happened to them, the wounded to kill ratio on the averaging them all together, is around 3-1. Okay, but as late in our century, that has increased. Okay, And it's increased until today. The ratio is from anywhere from 10 to 1 to 17 to 1. So this means that for every one person killed in the conflict or the war, there may be 10 to 17 that are wounded. So a lot more. Okay. So when you think about that, wound to kill ratio, and you put that in perspective in this World War III battle that we read about in Revelation 7. That's 1/3 will die. And so that would, if that's, just say the world population is 8 billion. Okay. I think it's close to it. So 1/3 would be what? 2.5, we'll say, billion people die. Then 10 times that going to be wounded? For every one person that's dead, 10 to 17 is going to be wounded? Man, that's a lot of people. What's that going to take us to? Almost the entire world. I mean, that's going to be almost, I'm going to say, 3/4, 7/8 of the world population killed or wounded in this war. I mean, just think about that. That's mind-numbing. It's like, what? It's hard to wrap your mind around, isn't it? So you have that's going to happen. And then you're going to have the tribulation years. The anti-Messiah going around chopping people's heads off and going crazy, hunting for the Nazarene. Right? So then if you live through those two things, and you happen to be over anywhere close to the Middle East, you're going to see another nuclear war happen, regional war called Armageddon. It's going to take place in Israel, in the Middle East. And that's going to affect quite a few people. Okay? Then, on top of all that, comes the day of Yahuah, who we just read about. It's hard to wrap your mind around, isn't it? It really is, but you know what? Wow. We got to put all that into perspective, man. And you see what I'm saying now? So if we're able to isolate and categorize World War III with 1/3 of mankind dying with a 1 to 10 to 17 ratio, a kill to wounded ratio attached to it, and everything, there ain't no way that many people want to die without NBC being involved. Nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare. Ain't going to be no conventional warfare. Sorry about that. If that's what you think, you're wrong. It's going nuclear, biological, and chemical. It's going to be a disaster of all disasters. And then we get that categorized and isolated, and everything that's going to happen in that event, which includes men burning up. Then here we go. Here comes the tribulation years of the anti-Messiah, chopping off heads and going crazy. So whatever damage he does, it's going to be a lot more people dead and wounded and so forth and so on right there. Okay. and then Armageddon. So if we can put that in a category and isolate all the events of the tribulation, and then Armageddon, isolate it, put it in category, all the things that are going to happen within that war, and then the day of Yahuah, isolate that, put it in category, and write down all the events that are going to happen in that event, all the things that are going to happen in that event. Then we can start seeing more clearly what's going on in Scripture. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm going to kind of point to where these things go. All right, the best that I can understand it anyway. So Joel, so we just read Isaiah 24. I want to compare that to Joel 2:3. So look at Joel chapter 2, verse 3. Ahead of them a fire has consumed, and behind them a flame burns. Before them the land is like the Garden of Eden, and behind them a desert waste, and from them there is no escape. See that? So, and then we just read Isaiah 24, right? So, obviously, the earth is burning at his second coming. At the return of Yahusha, it's obvious. The earth is burning at his second coming. So this proves then, this is evidence, this proves that his second coming and the day of Yahuah happens at the same time. Okay. Look up here at Joel, that same chapter 2, 1 through 5. Blow a ram's horn in Zion, and sound an alarm in my set-apart mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the Eretz tremble. For the Yom, or day of Yahuah, is coming, for it is near. A day of darkness and gloom, a day or Yom of clouds and thick darkness, like the morning clouds spread over the mountains. A people many and strong, the like of whom has never been, nor shall there ever be again after them, to the years of many generations. Ahead of them a fire has consumed, and behind them a flame burns. Before them the land is like the Garden of Eden, and behind them a desert waste, and from them there is no escape. Their appearance is like the appearance of horses, and they run like steeds. As the noise of chariots, they leap over mountaintops, as the noise of a flaming fire consuming stubble, as a mighty people set in battle array. See that? So the earth is obviously burning at his second coming. There's no doubt about it. Compare Isaiah 24 to Joel 2, verse 1 through 5. Jump ahead now to Joel 2, 28 and 32. Joel 2, 28 through 32. And after this it shall be that I pour out my Ruach on all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men dream dreams, your young men see visions. And also on the male servant and female servants I shall pour out my Ruach and no Jamam. And I shall give signs in the Shemaim and upon the Eretz, blood and fire and columns of smoke. The sun is turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the coming of the great and awesome Yom of Yahuah. And it shall be that everyone who calls on the name of Yahuah shall be delivered. For on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem there shall be an escape, as Yahuah has said, and among the survivors whom Yahuah calls. See that? So this is pretty much letting us know that the day of Yahuah, the sun going out, moon turning into blood. So this is letting you know that, see, this intense heat, this burning of the earth, has got something to do with the sun being dark, going out, lights out. Okay, and so the only thing that can really be pointing to then would be a nova. And so Joel 3 here, 14 and 16 through 16 says, throngs in the valley of decision, for the Yom of Yahuah is near in the valley of decision. Sun and moon shall become dark, and stars shall withdraw their brightness. And Yahuah shall roar from Zion and give forth his voice from Jerusalem. And the Shemaim and the Aret shall shake, but Yahuah shall be a refuge for his people and a stronghold for the children of Yisrael. Okay, so the children of Yisrael, or his chosen or elect, are going to be protected by this event. See, it definitely has something to do with the sun and the moon. It's going to become dark, so lights out. And the only thing that can cause that to happen is the sun being totally blocked out, either by nuclear fallout. It would appear as like a black clouds of a super thunderhead, like a thunderstorm. You ever see a thunderstorm where you look up and the clouds are black as tar? You usually don't see that much unless there's a tornado about ready to happen, But I've seen the looked up and the clouds were black as tar. I mean, there was no way you could see the sun or anything else, man, through those clouds. And so nuclear fallout would be similar to that. And so it could be, But this seems to apply that this is going to happen globally, around the entire world. This is going to happen. And so therefore, there's either going to be so much nuclear fallout circling the earth that you can't see the moon and the sun. So it's going to be dark, like at midnight, or something's going to happen to the sun. And the only thing that could happen to the sun to cause this would be a nova. Interestingly, 32, and it shall be that everyone who calls on the name of Yahuah shall be delivered, makes me believe that even in those Yom, those days, even on the brink of death, you can call on his name and he'll deliver you if you ask. He just wants you to acknowledge him, doesn't he, and admit you were wrong. Calling on his name is pretty much admitting that you were wrong, especially for an atheist. You ever think of that? Anyways, very powerful stuff here. So I think this, comparing Isaiah 24 to Joel 2 and 3 here, shows us that the earth is burning at his second coming. Okay. So in that event, then this proves that his second coming and the day of Yahuah happens at the same time. It's the same event. Okay. So it's not the exact same things don't happen, you know what I mean? But it happens at the same time. All right, so look at Zephaniah 1 through 18, that first chapter of Zephaniah. By the way, I'm in the BYNV, in case y'all wanting to know. Looks something like this. Bashura of Yahusha, Nazarene version. Okay, it's a very good translation. All right, so Zephaniah 1. The word of Yahuah, which came to Zephaniah, son of Cushi, son of Gedaliah, son of Amariah, son of Kizkiah, in the Yamam of Yashiyahu, son of Amon, sovereign of Yehuda. I shall snatch away all from the face of the Eretz, declares Yahuah. I snatch away man and beast. I snatch away the birds of the Shemaim and the fish of the sea, and the stumbling blocks with the wrong. When I shall cut off man from the face of the Eretz, declares Yahuah. That don't sound too good. That almost sounds like total annihilation, doesn't it? Elimination, genocide. Don't it sound like that? And I shall stretch out my hand against Yehuda and against all the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and cut off every trace of Baal from this place, the names of the Calmerim with the Kohanim, and those bowing down to the host of the Shemaim. That's horoscopes and things of this such. Of the Shemaim on the housetops, and those bowing themselves, swearing by Yahuah and swearing by Malcolm, and those who turn away from following Yahuah and who have not sought Yahuah or inquired of him. Oh, I thought he was going to wipe out the human race, but here it's just those that are being disobedient and bowing down to false mighty ones. Yeah, that was a scare, wasn't it? Hush! In the presence of the Master Yahuah. For the Yom of Yahuah is near. For Yahuah has prepared a slaughter. He has set apart his invited ones. And it shall be in the Yom of the slaughter of Yahuah that I shall punish the rulers and the sons of the sovereign and all such as are clad in foreign garments. And I shall punish on that Yom all who leap over the threshold, who fill their masters' houses with violence and deceit. And on the Yom there shall be, declares Yahuah, the sound of a cry from the fish gate, and of a howling from the second quarter, and of a great crashing from the hills. Howl, you inhabitants of Mektesh, for all the merchant people shall be silenced. All those weighing out silver shall be cut off. And at that time it shall be that I search Jerusalem with lamps and punish the men who are settled on their dregs, who say to their heart, Yahuah does no good, nor does he evil. And their wealth shall become plunder, and their houses laid waste. And they shall build houses, but not inhabit them. And they shall plant vineyards, but not drink their wine. Near is the great Yom of Yahuah, near and hurrying greatly. The noise of the Yom of Yahuah. Let the mighty man then bitterly cry out. That Yom is a Yom of wrath, a Yom of distress and trouble, a Yom of waste and ruin, a Yom of darkness and gloom, a Yom of clouds and thick darkness, a Yom of ram's horn and alarm against the walled cities and against the corner towers. And I shall bring distress on men, and they shall walk like blind men, because they have sinned against Yahuah, and their blood shall be poured out like dust, in their flesh like dung. Neither their silver nor their gold shall be able to deliver them in the Yom of the wrath of Yahuah. And by the fire of his jealousy, all the Eretz shall be consumed. For he makes a sudden end of all those who dwell in the Eretz. Wow. Wow. Good news is it sounds like he's going to shield and protect his people, the chosen ones, with immortal bodies, perhaps. Sounds about right to me. Look at Zechariah 13. Zechariah 13 says, "In that Yom, a fountain shall be opened for the house of the Od, and for the inhabitants of Jerusalem, for sin and for uncleanness. And it shall be in that Yom, declares Yahuah Sabaoth, that I cut off the names of the idols from the Eretz, and they shall be remembered no more. And I shall also remove the prophets and the unclean Ruach from the Eretz. And it shall be, when one prophesies again, then his father and mother who brought him forth shall say to him, you shall not live, because you have spoken falsehood in the name of Yahuah. And his father and mother who brought him forth shall pierce him through when he prophesies. And it shall be in that Yom that the prophet shall be ashamed, every one of his vision when he prophesies, and not put a hairy robe on in order to deceive, but shall say, I am no prophet. I am a farmer, for a man sold me as a slave in my youth. I am a farmer, meaning I am a harvest worker. You're a harvest worker. And one shall say to him, what are these wounds in your hands? And he shall say, because I was wounded at home by those who love me. O sword, awake against my shepherd, against the man who is my companion, declares Yahuah Sabaoth. Smite the shepherd and let the sheep be scattered. But I shall turn my hand upon the little ones. And it shall be throughout all the soil, declares Yahuah, all the people. We're made of dust, right? We're soil. So throughout all the soil, declares Yahuah, that 2/3 therein are cut off and die, and 1/3 is left therein. And I shall bring the third into fire, and refine them as silver is refined, and try them as gold is tried. They shall call on my name, and I shall answer them. I shall say, this is my people, while they say, Yahuah is my Elohim. Okay, so this obviously, man, seems to be giving us a ratio of Yahusha's people. Okay, so it seems to me that 2/3 of the people are going to be cut off and die. So 2/3 of all the people are going to be cut off and die. 1/3 will live, and they'll be his, because it says they will. It says the third, I will bring the third into fire. See that? So does that mean they're going to be burned up in the day of Yahuah? No. Does that mean they're going to be burned up with a nuclear blast? No, it doesn't. So what does it mean? And I shall bring the third into fire and refine them as silver is refined and try them as gold is tried. So he's going to bring you into trials and tribulations. Okay, he's going to test you. You're going to be tested and molded and cleaned through different trials and events and so forth and so on. That's what that's talking about. They shall call on my name, and I shall answer them. I shall say, this is my people, while they say, Yahuah is my Elohim. So obviously, this third is his people. He's cleaning them up, refining them, making them virgins, clean, white as snow. Although you are scarlet, you will be. Although your sins are scarlet, you will be made white as snow. See? So he's going to clean you up. So this seems to be a simple ratio that we can actually, I think, we can hold on to this, and I think we can claim this as being truth. 2/3 will be cut off and die, while 1/3 is delivered from the lake of fire. That's what I think it means. I think it's a secret ratio, letting us know what's going to happen. Some people say, well, this is talking about World War III. 1/3 will die and 2/3 will not. Oh, that would be backwards. That ain't what this is saying. This is saying 2/3 will die and 1/3 will be delivered. So it can't be the same ratio that's given to us in Revelation 7 about World War III. This is something totally different. Okay, so what's this talking about? Talking about the return of Yahuah, the return of Yahusha, obviously. Because up here in 6, it says, in 5, it says, but shall say, I am no prophet, I'm a farmer, meaning that you're a harvest worker, your servant. For a man sold me as a slave in my youth. And one shall say to him, what are these wounds in your hands? And he shall say, because I was wounded at home by those who love me. Okay, so this is obviously the return of Yahusha here. Okay. Now, right over here in Zechariah 12, it's very interesting. Because if we we're just looking at something here. Okay, so Zechariah 12:8. Okay. It says, in that Yom, Yahuah shall shield the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and the feeble among them in that Yom shall be like the Od, in the house of the Od like Elohim, like the messenger of Yahuah before them. Okay, see, that's what he's going to shield them from what? A nuke. So back up in 6, it says, in that Yom, now this is Armageddon. This isn't talking about the day of Yahuah. In that Yom, I make the leaders of Yehudah like a fire pot among trees, and like a torch of fire in the sheaves. And they shall consume all the people all around on the right and on the left. And Jerusalem shall dwell again in her own place in Jerusalem. And Yahuah shall save the tents of Yehudah first, so that the comeliness of the house of Daud and the comeliness of the inhabitants of Jerusalem would not become greater than that of Yehudah. In that Yom, Yahuah shall shield the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and the feeble among them in that Yom shall be like Daud, in the house of Daud like the Alihim, like the messenger of Yahuah before them. And it shall be that in that Yom that I seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem at the battle of Armageddon. Okay, but he's going to shield the inhabitants of Jerusalem from a nuclear blast. The army of the anti-Messiah that's coming attacking Jerusalem is going to be destroyed. And I shall pour out on the house of Daud and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem a ruach of favor and prayer, and they shall look on me, whom they pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourns for his only son, and they shall be in bitterness over him as a bitterness over the firstborn. And so this is the return of Yahusha at the end of Armageddon. And so what happens at the end of Armageddon? What is that? What is the end of Armageddon? It's the end of the tribulation years. It's the climax of the tribulation years. So we're going to see here in a moment that the day of Yahuah comes immediately after the tribulation years. Immediately. Okay? Immediately. All right, so here is obviously the return of Yahusha. In that Yom, the mourning in Jerusalem is going to be great, like the mourning at Hadad Rimmon in the valley of Megiddo. Okay. Now, over 1412. Okay, so this is talking about a nuclear bomb. Okay, this isn't talking about the day of Yahuah, but it is talking about the return of Yahusha at the end of the tribulation years, immediately after. And otherwise, at the very end of Armageddon, when the Israelites choose the Samson option, and that means they're going to detonate a nuclear weapon and blow up themselves and their enemy. So they're going to blow up their enemy that's coming up because they don't want to give up Jerusalem. So in their mindset, it's better that we die with our enemy than to lose Jerusalem again. And so that's what they do. And so they choose to detonate a nuclear weapon that blows up the anti-Messiah and his army that's advancing on them. And that's at the same exact time as the return of Yahusha. And he shields the inhabitants of Jerusalem from that nuclear blast. So all those people, they recognize him as their Messiah and accept him as their Messiah at that particular point in time. And they don't get hurt. The inhabitants of Jerusalem does not get hurt in that nuclear blast because Yahusha shields them at his second coming and when he returns. Just at the precise moment in order to shield them, protect them from that nuclear detonation. So look at 14:12, Zechariah 14:12. And this is the plague. See, these guys didn't know what to call these nuclear detonations, so they called them plagues. Fire, smoke, brimstone, sulfur. You know, that's all they knew. That's the only way they could describe it, as a plague. You know, in Revelations, describes it as 3 plagues: smoke, fire, and sulfur, whatever it says. We'll get to that. How else would you describe it if you didn't know what it was? I say a plague's about probably a good as any. And this is the plague with which Yahuah plagues all the people who fought against Jerusalem. We know that Yahuah returns at the very end of Armageddon. We know, we just read that. Their flesh shall decay while they stand on their feet, and their eyes decay in their sockets, and their tongues decay in their mouths. So this is a perfect description of a nuclear disaster. Somebody who has been exposed to a nuclear bomb. Okay, that's what happens to them when they're within a certain radius. Their flesh falls off of their bones while they're standing on their feet. Your eyes, melt in your eye sockets. Your tongue melts in your mouth. From what? From the radiation, the heat, the radiation. And it shall be in that yom that a great confusion from Yahuah is among them, and every one of them shall seize the hand of his neighbor, and his hand rise up against his neighbor's hand. Okay, so this is talking about the end of Armageddon and the return of Yahusha. Okay, that's what this is talking about. So obviously, Scripture talks about these two nuclear wars, World War III and Armageddon. Both of these will be nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare, both of them. Read that chapter, Zechariah 12, 13, and 14. You get a chance. Be good for you. Read that. We also read about Rome or the Vatican being nuked over in Revelations 18. Look at that. Revelations 18, 8 through 24. Talks about Rome being nuked in 1 hour, totally destroyed in 1 hour. Because of this, her plague shall come in 1 yom, death and mourning and scarcity of food, and she shall be burned up with fire, because Yahuah, who judges her, is mighty. Okay, so this isn't talking about the day of Yahuah. This is talking about nuclear bomb. Okay. Hitting the Vatican, Rome. See, so she will be burned up with fire. See that? Go down to 10. When they see the smoke of her burning, standing at a distance for fear of her torture, saying, "Woe, woe, the great city Babel, the mighty city, because your judgment has come in 1 hour." So how is a city, a large city, going to be destroyed in 1 hour? It's not, unless it's nuked. It's got to be a huge nuclear bomb. I just read a couple of days ago, I guess it was, that the United States just achieved making this nuclear warhead, this missile, that was the most devastating, largest nuclear warhead ever invented by man. And if I remember right, I think it was 27 times. It's got the ability to bring 27 times more destruction on a city than the bomb, an atomic bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima in Japan during World War II. 27 times that strength. I mean, that's crazy. And we have it. They just came out with it 1 year in advance, early. That's huge. 27 times the destruction of the atom bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Wow. That's huge devastation. And then verse 12 says, merchandise of gold and silver and precious stone and pearls, and fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet, and all citron wood and every object of ivory, and every object of most precious wood and bronze and iron and marble, and cinnamon and incense and fragrant oil and frankincense, and wine and oil, and fine flour and wheat and cattle and sheep, and horses and carriages, and bodies and lives of men. This is a very rich place, okay? And so this is speaking of the Vatican. Down into 16, and saying, woe, woe, the great city that was dressed in fine linen and purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour such great riches was laid waste. See that? In 1 hour. And they cried out when they saw the smoke of her burning. See, she's on fire, saying, what is like this great city? And they threw dust on their heads and cried out, weeping and mourning, and saying, woe, woe, the great city, in which all who had ships on the sea became rich by her wealth. For in 1 hour she was laid waste. So this is nuclear activity here. There's no doubt about it. And this city, which obviously is Rome. Pretty obvious. You see, it's burned up in fire and all this other stuff. And so, see now, so when is that going to happen? When is that going to happen? Is that going to happen in World War III? Or is that supposed to happen in Armageddon? Well, my guess is possibly neither. This could happen by the anti-Messiah may do that. But during the tribulation years, but if it ain't the anti-Messiah that orders that detonation of the nuclear warhead on Rome, then I would say that happens at World War III, because I think Armageddon's local, regional, happens in Jerusalem, in the Valley of Megiddo, in Jerusalem itself. But tribulation, the wrath of Hashatan, is pretty widespread. Okay, so what I'm saying here is in Zechariah 12, this burning, smoke, and all this, we can put that under the category of Armageddon. Okay, and this would be then therefore would be nuclear, not the day of Yahuah. The day of Yahuah comes after. Okay. All right, go to Malachi. Malachi 4:1-6. Okay, so since there's a real tight time frame here between the end of the tribulation years, the climax of the tribulation years being Armageddon, the Battle of Armageddon, and the return of Yahusha. He coming back, the world's burning, so that it's the same time period as the day of Yahuah. All that happens on a real short timeline. So that's why a lot of people say it's the same thing. But really, it's different things happening at the same time. You know, very compressed timeline there on those three things. And the restoration as well is right there within that same tight time frame, the restoration. Because the millennium reign begins immediately after the day of Yahuah, and after the restoration, the millennium reign kicks in. Yahusha's not going anywhere. Once he comes back, he's staying here. He's not going to stay here on a planet that's been devastated by nuclear holocausts. Malachi 4:1-6. For look, the yom shall come, burning like a furnace, and all the proud and every wrongdoer shall be stubble, and the yom that shall come shall burn them up, said Yahuah Sabaoth, which leaves to them neither root nor branch. But to you who fear my name, the servant of righteousness shall arise with healing in his wings. And you shall go out and leap for joy like calves from the stall. And you shall trample the wrongdoers, for these shall be ashes under the soles of your feet on that yom that I do this, said Yahuah Sabaoth. So what this is letting us know then, the servant of righteousness shall rise with healing in his wings. That's Yahusha. Okay. And then his chosen people that were delivered from the day of Yahuah are going to trample on the wrongdoers who are now been burnt up and are ashes under their feet. So see, all this is happening at the same time. Different events all happening at the same time, basically. I don't want to say simultaneously, but man, that timeline's compressed. This is saying it's really tight. Remember the Torah of Moshe, my servant, which I commanded him in Koreb for all Yisrael. Koreb's the same thing as Mount Sinai. Laws and right rulings. See, I am sending you Elijah, the prophet, before the coming of the great and awesome day of Yahuah. And he shall turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, the hearts of the children to the fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with utter destruction. Wow. I'm blowing right there. Okay, so, wow. Sending you Elijah, the prophet, before the coming of the great and awesome Yom of Yahuah. Who do you think that is? One of the two witnesses? Possibly. Very, very, very possible. That could be one. Elijah could be one of the two witnesses, according to that, what that just said right there. If you believe that that's literal. If that's a literal statement, then the only thing where that would fit in would be that Elijah is one of the two witnesses, right? Along with either Enoch or Yehukanan, Eleazar, because of what's written in Revelations 10:11. And that would be Revelations 10:11. I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but look at Revelations 10:11. I know a lot of people are interested in this. 10:11 says, and he said to me, this is Yehukanan speaking now, the author of Revelation, which a lot of us believe is Eleazar or Lazarus, okay, under an alias of Yehukanan, because they were out to kill him. The Pharisees and religious leaders all wanted to kill Lazarus, who was really Eleazar, was his Hebrew name, along with Yahusha, because he was witnessing and he was converting people with his witnessing, that he was woke up from the dead, brought back from the dead. And so they were out to kill him, to shut him up. And so he went into hiding, and he took the alias name of Yehukanan, as he remained incognito for the rest of his days. Now, he was caught by the Romans, and he was boiled alive 3 times in oil, and they couldn't kill him. They didn't kill him. So they exiled him onto the island of Patmos, which was a large, I think it was a large iron ore mine, I believe. They were mining something there on that island. Anyway, that's where they sent a lot of the troublemakers and whatever, and made them work in that mine. And so he was exiled there to the island of Patmos, and where he wrote this revelation. But he didn't, although he was caught and identified, he didn't go back to his original name, Alazar. He remained using Yahuah, his alias. And so, people say, well, that don't make no sense. If they would have caught him, why didn't he just go back to using his original name? And more than likely because he had already wrote Yahuah 1, Yahuah 2, Yahuah 3, and possibly the book of Yahuah, maybe all four of them before he wrote Revelation. And so he didn't want to change up the authorship. And so he just kept writing under his alias as his pen name or his author name of Yahuah. That's just a wild guess, but probably what happened. But anyway, and he said to me, you have to prophesy again concerning many peoples and nations and tongues and sovereigns. So this sounds like it's a good possibility that he remained alive and did not die again or fall back to sleep, but remained awake and will so as one of the two witnesses, and along with probably Elijah. Good chance of it, because right after this, Malachim told him that he was going to have to prophesy again concerning many peoples, nations, tongues, and sovereigns. Then he went and gave him the vision and the measurements of the temple that would be erected on the Temple Mount in the last days. And then he, right after that, he started talking about the two witnesses. Right after he told him he had to prophesy again. So it's almost like he was letting him know, you're going to be one of these two witnesses. Or read it in context. That's the thing. It's in context. So chapter 10 and 11 flows in context. That's why it's, very possible Yahuah is going to be one of the two witnesses along with Elijah. If it ain't him, it'll probably be Enoch. That's just my wild guess. But anyway, back over to where we were at. Yeah, very interesting here. It shows the servant of righteousness coming and the day of Yahuah, and the burning of everything up, because the chosen that was rescued at the return of Yahusha are walking now on the burnt, scorched earth on the ashes of the wrong. So here's the return of Yahusha, the first resurrection, the day of Yahuah, the earth has been scorched, and the chosen are walking on the ashes of the wrongdoers that were burnt up on the day of Yahuah. So this is all about the day of Yahuah and the scorching of the earth, more likely by the sun that's gone haywire, nova. So you see all those events happen real short period of time right there. That it's like it's not the same exact events, but all those events happen at the same time. Probably, like I said, maybe not simultaneously, but in a very, very compressed timeline. Look at Luke 21. Luke 21, 17. Let's go 17 through 28 in Luke 21. This is where I told you we'd come back to it. Here it is. And you shall be hated by all because of my name, but not a hair of your head shall be lost at all. Possess your lives by your endurance. And when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its destruction is near. Then let those in Yehuda flee to the mountains, and let those who are in the middle of her go out, and let not those who are in the fields enter her, because these are Yamim of vengeance, to fill all that have been written. Okay, so this is Armageddon. This isn't 70 AD. This has not happened yet. Okay, in order for Jerusalem to be surrounded by armies of the world, Israel has to be reestablished. Okay, because it's the Israelites who see him come back when Yahusha returns to the Mount of Olives. They see him who they had pierced. He was pierced by those who loved him, that he loved, those whom he loved. See that? With the Israelites, they recognize him as their Messiah, and they accept him as their Messiah at that point. See that? So this is happening at Armageddon, man. I know a lot of people teach this is 70 AD, but it's not. The Yamim of vengeance is probably referring to Revelation 16, the wrath of Yahuah, in the 7 bowls or vials that we read about in chapter 16 of Revelations. And woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing children in those Yamim, for there shall be a great distress in the Eretz and wrath upon this people. That's 3.5 years of tribulation. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword and be led away captive into all the nations. And Jerusalem shall be trampled underfoot by the nations until the times of the nations are concluded. So the time of the Gentiles have come in. And Jerusalem shall be trampled underfoot by the nations, is talked about in Revelations 11:2 under the 2 witnesses that we were just talking about. So go to Revelations 11:2. I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but try to keep up. 11:2 says, but cast out the court, after he's given all the measurements of the new temple on the Temple Mount here. Now I'll just go to 1. Let me read it. And a reed like a measuring rod was given to me, and the messenger stood, saying, rise and measure the temple of Yahuah, and the altar, and those worshiping in it. See, there's going to be a 3rd temple up there. It's going to be a forgery, but it's going to be there. It's not going to be the millennium temple that Ezekiel talked about in chapter 40 through 48. This is going to be a forgery, a fake. But cast out the court which is outside the temple, and do not measure it, for it has been given to the nations, and they shall trample the set apart city underfoot for 42 months or 3.5 years. You see that? There it is. For they shall be great distress in the Eretz and wrath upon this people. And Jerusalem shall be trampled underfoot by the nations until the times of the nations are concluded. So this is talking about this, Armageddon, tribulation years, the 2 witnesses, the temple, the 3rd temple on the Temple Mount, or the forgery, if you will, and there shall be signs in the sun and moon. Listen to that. And stars, and on the Eretz, anxiety of nations, and bewilderment at the roaring of the sea. That means tidal waves, man. The sea is going to be bringing in tidal waves. It's going to go nuts. Why? Because the moon is what controls the the waves, of the sea. And so it's going to go haywire. And there shall be signs in the sun and moon and stars, and on the Eretz anxiety of nations, and bewilderment at the roaring of the sea, and agitation, men fainting, passing out, dropping dead, heart attacks from fear, and the expectation what was coming on the Eretz. For the powers of the Shemayim shall be shaken. You want to shake the Shemayim, man? Whoa. And then they shall see the Son of Adam coming in a cloud with power and much esteem. So here is his return. So here we see the day of Yahuah. Right at the end, we have the two witnesses. We have the tribulation years. We have the Armageddon, the wrath of Yahuah, and then we have the sign in the sun, the moon, the stars, the roaring of the seas, agitation, men fainting, passing out, heart attacks, whatever, because expectation of what's coming on the Eretz, which they see is disaster, right? Destruction. For the powers of the Shemayim be shaken, and then they see the Son of Adam. So here comes the return of Yahusha now, basically at the same time, but all these are different events, aren't they? Aren't they different events? Yes, they are. So the day of Yahuah and the return of Yahusha is not the same event, but they happen at the same time, along with right at the very same time as Armageddon, the end of Armageddon, the end of the tribulation years. And then they shall see the Son of Adam coming in a cloud with power and much esteem. And when these things begin to take place, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near. That means you're going to be redeemed at the same time all this is going on. You're going to be redeemed. The first resurrection, you're going to get immortal bodies. At the same time, all this other stuff's happening. All these events basically happened at the same time. That's crazy. I mean, look at all that's going on right at the same time. At the end of the 6th millennium, look at all that stuff that happens. Man, that's powerful stuff, man. That's mind-blowing stuff. That's bone-shaking stuff. Acts chapter 2. Acts chapter 2, verse 16 through 24. But this is what was spoken by the prophet Joel. And it shall be in the last Yamim, says Elohim, that I shall pour out my Ruach on all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. And also on my male servants and on my female servants I shall pour out my Ruach in those Yamim, and they shall prophesy. Okay, so this right here is the beginning of the last Yamim, is when Peter stood up at Pentecost or Shabboth and prophesied. Okay, Peter's the one that prophesied by speaking Joel 2 verbatim. Okay. Then he goes on and says, and I shall show wonders in the heaven above and signs in the earth beneath, blood and fire and vapor of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the coming of the great and splendid Yom of Yahuah. So there you go. There is the day of Yahuah. Okay. So it's on the last days begin at year 4000, your Earth timeline, and it lasts until the end of the ages. To the 6000th year is up. Okay, and a 2000-year period is considered the last Yamam by Yahuah. Okay, 2000 years. Last days is 2000 years long, or 2 days long, because 1 day is 1,000 years. 1,000 years is 1 day to Yahuah. Okay, and so then it tells us when the last days start, and then he says, I'm going to show you wonders. Okay, blood, fire, and vapor, smoke. Sun are going to be turned dark. Okay, lights out. Sun going out, and somehow that sun is going out. Lights are going to be out. Lights out. Total darkness. The moon into blood. So if the moon reflects the sun's light, okay, so the sun and the moon, the earth and the moon's on the other side, and the sun reflects off the whatever side of the earth is facing the sun, and it becomes what we call daytime, right? Daylight, right? And then we get radiant heat off of the sun. So in other words, the sun hits the objects on the earth and heats them up, and the objects release heat. It's called radiant heat, and warms up the atmosphere. That's how we get heat. Okay, and the sunlight hits whatever part of the moon is available for the sun to reflect off of during the lunar cycle. And so then we see that the lighted part of the moon that's reflecting the light of the sun. If the moon is totally hidden behind the earth, then the sun will not reflect any light off of it and becomes a new moon. It's total black disk because the sun isn't hitting it at all. And so the moon doesn't give us any light. Okay. People that try to teach that the moon is its own light source, flat earthers, don't want to really mention any names, try to say that the moon is its own light source. Well, if that's true, explain the new moon. It shouldn't matter then if the earth is blocking the sun from hitting the moon. If it's its own light source, it should still shine. But it doesn't, does it? No, it don't. So the sun, if it goes out in its nova, it's going to be a red dwarf, because our sun isn't big enough to be a red giant. So it'll be a red dwarf, and it's going to look real red. Okay, and that's going to reflect onto the moon and make the moon look red, like blood. That's why the moon's going to look like it's blood. So the sun shall be turned into darkness. That would be a red dwarf, a nova, and the moon into blood, because it's reflecting, that red nova is reflecting off the face of the moon, making it look like blood. Before the coming of the great and splendid Yom of Yahuah, the day of Yahuah. And so before the coming of the great and splendid day of Yahuah, the coming, that's the return. See, so the lights out before the coming, then we see his sign, the sign of his coming, then we see him coming. But all this is going to be happening really close to the same time. But here we can see through Acts here that this is, in Joel too, that this is different events happening approximately the same time, a very compressed, short time line. Okay? And it shall be that everyone who calls on the name of Yahuah shall be delivered, even in the final moments, folks. Anyone who calls on the name of Yahuwah shall be delivered. That's amazing. You know what that is? That's compassion. That's mercy. That's loving kindness. That's the love of Yahuwah, man. Unbelievable. That he'll allow anyone that calls on his name, even up to the very last seconds, to be delivered. That shows how much love and compassion, mercy he has. Men of Yisrael, hear these words. Yahusha of Nazareth, a man from Elohim, having been pointed out to you by mighty works and wonders and signs, which Elohim did through him in your midst, as you yourselves also know. This one, given up by the set purpose and foreknowledge of Elohim, you have staked and put to death through the hands of lawless men. Him Elohim raised up, having loosed the pains of death, because it was impossible that he could be held in its grip. So, see that? So death only has authority over sin. And since Yahusha did not sin, it was impossible for death to hold him in its grip. It had to release him, and rather quickly. It had no authority over an innocent man. Death only has authority over sin. So it had to let him go. And therefore, he demanded restitution for his wrong conviction. And he was given his restitution, which was his people would be able to live again like him. All righty. Let's look at 2 Peter 3. Second Peter 3, 1 through 12. 2 Peter 3, 1 through 12. Says, this is now, beloved ones, the second letter I write to you, in which I stir up your sincere mind to remember the words previously spoken by the set apart prophets, and of the command of the master and deliverer spoken by your emissaries, knowing this first, that mockers shall come in the last Yamam with mocking, walking according to their own lusts, and saying, where's the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all continues as from the beginning of creation. For they choose to have this hidden from them, that the Shemaim were of old, and the Eretz standing out of water and in water by the word of Elohim, through which the world at that time was destroyed, being flooded with water. So the world was the first time was totally flooded with water and destroyed. And the present Shemaim and the Eretz, the same one that was flooded, are treasured up by the same word, being kept for fire, to a yam of judgment and destruction of wicked men. So it's reserved for fire. It's going to be burnt. Okay, it's just a matter of time. When the correct appointed time comes, the earth, the same earth that was flooded, is going to be destroyed again, but this time, instead of water, it will be destroyed with fire. But beloved ones, let not this one thing be hidden from you, that with Yahuah 1 day is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one yom. And so to put that more into perspective, if a man would live to be 100 years old, okay, according to this mathematical equation given to us, that 1 day is 1,000 years, 1,000 years, 1 day. If a man would live to 100 years old, okay, to Yahuah, that same man lived to be 100 years old. We seem to deem that is a long life, don't we? But it's not. It really is not. Even if you live to be 900 years old, it's going to fly by. One day you're going to be 900 years old and you're going to go, wow, time, where did time go? Same way as you're going to now. You're 70, you're 80, you're 90. You know what I'm talking about. Where'd it go? How'd I get here so fast? Well, same thing. No matter if you live to be 900 to be saying the same thing. But we like to say it's a long life. Oh, he lived 100 years old. He lived a long life. He's so lucky, right? But he really didn't. So to Yahuah, that same man lived to be 2.4 hours old. That's it. 2.4 hours old. That's it to Yahuah. Yahuah is not slow in regard to the promise, as some count slowness, but is patient toward us, not wishing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. But the Yom of Yahuah, here comes the day of Yahuah now. The Yom of Yahuah shall come as a thief in the night, in which the Shemaim shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with intense heat, and the arets and the works that are in it shall be burnt up. Okay, so this is speaking of this great noise is probably the vacuum. The sun goes out and then sucks everything around it, and then all of a sudden it lights back up. It probably makes a big sound as it fires back up. Okay, and then it's such a intense thing that happens there that it produces so much heat comes off of it, that the intense heat comes off of it, that the earth catches fire, and the earth and the works that are in it, everything that's in it made by man, are going to be burned up. Seeing all these are to be destroyed in this way, what kind of people ought you to be and set apart behavior and reverence, looking for and hastening the coming of the Yom of Elohim, through which the Shemaim shall be destroyed, being set on fire, and the elements melt with intense heat. There you go. Now look at 13. But according to his promise, we wait for a renewed Shemaim and a renewed Eretz in which uprightness dwells. So that's talking about the millennium reign. So this would be proper verbiage. Okay, so we could see this as restored, restoration of back to the original condition. But according to his promise, we wait for a renewed or restored Shemaim and a renewed or restored Eretz in which uprightness dwells. And uprightness would be Yahusha living here with the people, the remnant that survived all this, that's going to repopulate the world. It doesn't have to be more than just a man and a woman, really. I mean, the first time around, according to Peter here, it was 8. So look over here at 1 Peter 3:20. 1 Peter 3:20. Let's start at 18. Because even Mashiach once suffered for sins, the just for the unjust, to bring you to Elohim, having been put to death indeed in flesh, but made alive in the Ruach, in which also he went and proclaimed to the Ruachs in prison, who were disobedient at one time, when the patience of Elohim waited in the Yamam of Noah, while the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is, 8 persons, were delivered through water, which figure now also saves us, immersion, not a putting away of the filth of the flesh, but the pledge of a good conscience toward Elohim through the resurrection of Yahusha HaMashiach, who, okay, so here we go. 8 people populated the world the first time, and it will destroy the water. So it can be 8, it can be 2, it can be whatever Yahuwah wants it to be, but the remnant that's left over after all this happens will repopulate the world during the millennium reign, the 1,000-year peace of restoration. The world, the earth, and the Shemayim will be renewed. It will be a restoration, and the remnant will repopulate the earth. Okay. And we know that because it tells us that in Revelations. It tells us that when the devil's released after the 1,000-year millennium reign, he goes out and collects an army so big that as the sands of the sea. So there's going to be a lot of people on the earth again repopulated. Not all are going to follow the devil, but there's going to be a large army that does, like the sands of the seashore. So there's going to be a lot of people on the earth at the end of that millennium reign. It'll be repopulated to the max, man, is what I would say. All right, look at Matthew 24, 29 through 31. Listen to this. I'm going to back up here to 27. Okay. Now, I probably should go back up to 2022. And in those Yamam, if those Yamam were not shortened, speaking of tribulation years, no flesh would be delivered. But for the sake of the chosen ones, those Yamam shall be shortened. So Yahuwah's going to shorten the tribulation years, the days of the tribulation years. He's not going to shorten it by years, but by days. It says those days shall be shortened, not years, just some days. I believe about 45 days, and I get that from Daniel 12. If anyone then says to you, look, here is the Mashiach, or there, do not believe it. For false Mashiachs and false prophets shall arise, and they shall show great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the chosen ones. See, I have forewarned you. So if they say to you, look, he is in the desert, do not go. Or look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe. For as the lightning comes from the east and shines to the west, so also shall the coming of the Son of Adam be. So this right here sounds like some type of mega flash. Okay. Some type of mega flash here is going to take place. The current world record for lightning strike is 477 miles long, and it lasted for 17 seconds. It went across 5 states, southern states. This mega flash, which is the sign of his coming, is going to be much, much greater than that. It'll dwarf that current world record. Then it says something really, really interesting here. For wherever the dead body is, there the eagles shall be gathered together. And then it says this very, very interesting verse here. And immediately. So immediately is a very intriguing word, because immediately means no time involved. There's nothing involved there, man. There's not even a minutes. There's no seconds. It's nothing. It's immediate. That means there's no time involved. It's immediately. Interesting, intriguing word, isn't it? And immediately after the distress of those Yamam, so that would be immediately after the tribulation years, or after Armageddon. That's the climax of the tribulation years. The sun shall be darkened. Now that's the day of Yahuah, isn't it? The sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give its light, and the stars shall fall from the heaven, and the powers of the Shemayim shall be shaken. So lights out, day of Yahuah, man. You see where it says, and the moon shall not give its light? That's where they get that, trying to say that the moon has its own light, but it doesn't. It reflects the light from the sun, reflects off of it. That's what lights the face of that moon up. If it had its own light, then why is there a dark side of the moon? It's like the earth don't have its own light. That's why it's nighttime on the side of the earth that doesn't face the sun. And silliness. People are silly. Son. I don't understand sometimes why people say the things they say. It's like they read it and it's like, boom, they automatically go brain dead. They can't see past their nose. I don't know. It's kind of weird, but they say that's what they do. Anyway, lights out, man. Immediately after the tribulation years. So there's no time involved there, man. So now we have the tribulation years climaxing with Armageddon, nuclear bomb detonation. He said, but as soon as that happens, not only does Yahusha return, we know he returns because he shields them, and he comes down the Mount of Olives, and they see him. They see the wounds in his side and his hands pierced. We read that in Zechariah 13, 14. So here, immediately after the tribulation years, the day of Yahuah happens. See, there's no time in there. Immediately means no time involved, not even minutes, not seconds, nothing, no time involved. It's immediate. Okay? And then the sign of the son of Adam shall appear in the heaven. Okay, so when lights are out and it's total, we're in total darkness, then the sign of the son of Adam appears in the heaven. That's like the lightning, the mega flash we're just talking about. And then all the tribes of the Eretz shall mourn. Look, there's people left. Look at that. Then all the tribes of the Eretz shall mourn, and they shall see the son of Adam coming on the clouds of the heaven with power and much esteem. See, so there's people left when he returns. Of course there is. He shields the nuclear blast. The tribes are going to mourn, and the lights go out, and they see the sign of the son of Adam appearing in the heaven. It says, then all the tribes of the Eretz shall mourn. So there's people, man. But they get fried. So you see, this right here proves what we're talking about in Isaiah 24 and Joel 2 and 3, that the earth is burning at the time of his return. So it says right here. Lights are out. Then the sign of Adam comes. The tribes of the earth are mourning, and they shall see the Son of Adam coming on the clouds of the heaven with power and much esteem. And he shall send his messengers with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his chosen ones from the four winds, from one end of the Shemayim to the other. So there you go. There's your first resurrection, the return of Yahusha, the day of Yahuah. And it's the earth's burning when he comes back. And then when we touch down with him, the earth burns up. We're going to be walking around on the ashes of the wrong. It's mind-blowing. This all happens at the same time. All these different events happens at the same time. Some of it's immediate. Like the day of Yahuah is immediate. After the distress of those Yamam, the sun will go out, lights out. So that's how short of a time frame all this happens in. Some of it's immediate, back to back. Some of it has a little bit of time in there, but not much. It's still a very compressed timeline. You know what I'm saying? All right. Mark 13 then. Mark 13. I like 19 through 27. So Mark 13, 19 through 27. Okay. For in those Yamam, there shall be distress. So that's the tribulation years. Such as has not been from the beginning of creation, which Elohim created until this time, nor ever shall be. So this will be a horrible, sudden destruction coming upon the people of the earth. Horrible. Tribulation years are going to be horrible destruction. I mean, there ain't going to be that many people on the earth, I don't think. By the time the day of Yahuah comes, it doesn't sound like there's going to be that many left. Even before the day of Yahuah wipes them all out. And if the master had not shortened those Yamam, no flesh would be delivered. But because of the chosen ones whom he chose, he shortens the Yamam. Now this is powerful stuff here. This is letting us know that there's not going to be any rapture. The rapture's false. Falsehood. False teaching. Why? Because he's going to shorten the days because of the chosen ones would not be delivered. They would be destroyed if he didn't shorten the days for them. So that means they're going to be here on the earth during the tribulation years, all the way from the beginning to the end. He doesn't ever rapture them. He does give them immortal bodies. He does do the first resurrection. But as he comes back down onto the scorched earth. This absolute proof, man, that we're still on the earth when he comes back. Ain't no rapture. That verse 20 blows the rapture theory out of the water, totally debunks it. And if anyone then says to you, look, here is the Mashiach, or look there, do not believe it. For false Mashiachs and false prophets shall rise and show signs and wonders to lead astray, if possible, even the chosen ones. See, so that means you're going to be here. And you take heed. See, I have forewarned you of it all. But in those Yamam, after that distress, the sun shall be darkened and the moon shall not give its light. See, it doesn't say immediately here, but it says after that distress, after the tribulation years, the sun shall be darkened and the moon shall not give its light. That's the start of the day of Yahuah. And the stars of heaven shall fall, and the powers in the Shemayim shall be shaken. Lights out, baby. And then they shall see the Son of Adam coming in the clouds with much power and esteem. And then he shall send his messengers and assemble his chosen ones from the four winds. The second Exodus, the first resurrection. From the farthest part of the earths to the farthest part of heaven. There you go. Second Exodus, first resurrection, return of Yahusha, day of Yahuah, all happening right there in the same time frame, real close to each other. Bam, 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 bam. See that? So different events all happen at the same time. That's what that's telling me. And should be telling you the same thing. You should be seeing the same thing. I hope you are. Okay. All right. Revelation 6, 12 through 17 says, Revelations 6, 12 through 17. And I looked when he opened the sixth seal and saw a great earthquake come, and a great earthquake came to be. And the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. And the stars of the heaven fell to the earths, as a fig tree drops its unripe figs, being shaken by a strong wind. And heaven departed like a scroll, being rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place. Man, what a great earthquake that's going to be. Wow. And the sovereigns of the earths, and the great ones, and the rich ones, and the commanders, and the mighty, and every slave and every free one, hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him sitting on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, because the great yom of his wrath has come, and who is able to stand? Let me show you something real quick. Pay very close attention to this. Can you see right here where it says, fall on us and hide us from the face of him sitting on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb? Well, Yahusha is the one sitting on the throne. Look over at Revelations 15. Revelations 15:7 says, and one of the 4 living creatures gave to the 7 messengers 7 golden bowls filled with the wrath of Yahuah, who lives forever and ever. Look at 16, Revelation 16:2. And the first, 16:1. And I heard a loud voice from the temple saying to the 7 messengers, go and pour out the bowls of the wrath of Yahuah on the earths. And the first went and poured out his bowl upon the earths, and an evil and wicked sore came upon the men, those having the mark of the beast and those worshiping his image. So here, not only do we understand that these bowls contain the wrath of Yahuah, but the first bowl made an evil and wicked sore come upon the men having the mark of the beast and worshiping his image. So obviously, the mark of the beast has already been given at the time of the pouring out of these bowls, which is the start of Armageddon, or the climax to the tribulation years, the end of the tribulation years, Armageddon. See, so you can see here, the mark of the beast has already been given because swords come upon the men that took the mark. Okay, so back over now to where we were at, Revelation 6, 12. Um, 16. And said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him sitting on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. Because the great yom of his wrath has come, and who is able to stand? See that? So the great wrath of the Lamb. And then over here, it's the wrath of Yahuah. This is letting you know that Yahuah is the Lamb. Wrath of the Lamb, the wrath of Yahuah. It's the same thing. Letting you know that Yahuah created a lamb to sacrifice and it contained his blood, so the lamb was what? His fleshly body. So he took his body of light, the firstborn of all creation. First thing he created was a body for himself of light, and he turned it into flesh, so it contained his blood to spill, because without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sin. And his body became the lamb that he sacrificed for the sins of the world. And afterwards, after he resurrected his body, it is when it ascended back into the Shemayim, up and sit back on the throne. And so when you see the one sitting on the one throne, you're seeing the Lamb, you're seeing Yahusha, you're seeing the Word, you're seeing the firstborn of all creation, you're seeing the messenger of Yahuah sitting on that throne in his body form. Otherwise, you couldn't see him. You can't see Yahuah. He's a spirit. No one has ever seen Yahuah and lived to tell about it. No one's ever seen Yahuah because he's spirit. But they have seen his body of light. They've seen his body of flesh. They have seen his right arm. They have seen the Lamb of Yahuah. So this right here proves that the Lamb is the body of Yahuah. The wrath of the Lamb, the wrath of Yahuah. Revelation 16, same thing. That should open up a big can of worms for anybody that doesn't understand that Yahusha is Yahuah incarnated. Look at Revelations 9, 13 through 21. And the sixth messenger sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar, which is before Yahuah, saying to the sixth messenger who had the trumpet, release the four Malachim, those having been bound at the great river Euphrates. And the four Malachim, those having been prepared for the hour and a yom and a moon and year, were released to kill a third of mankind. And the number of the armies of the horsemen were 200 million, and I heard the number of them. And this is how I saw the horses in the vision, and those who sat on them having breastplates of fiery red, hyacinth blue, and sulfur yellow. And that's a communist army. Then the heads of the horses were like the heads of lions, and out of their mouths came fire and smoke and sulfur. These are rockets, missiles, helicopters, jets, nuke missiles, anything, whatever. A third of mankind was killed by these three plagues, by the fire and the smoke and the sulfur which came out of their mouths. So these three plagues are none other than nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare, weapons of mass destruction. These are the three plagues. How else would Yehukanan describe them? I think he did a fantastic job describing NBC and the modern war myself, modern warfare. For the authority of the horses is in their mouth and in their tails, for their tails are like serpents, having heads, and with them they do harm. And the rest of mankind who were not killed by these plagues did not repent of the works of their hands, that they should not worship the demons and the idols of gold and silver and brass and stone and wood, which are neither able to see nor hear nor to walk. And they did not repent of their murders, nor of their drug sorceries, nor of their whoring, nor of their thefts. So they're still committing idolatry through worldly religions. If you're in a religion, get out now. I don't care what the name of it is. It's wrong. It's falsehood, and you're in danger by being in that religion. Get out of it. Now. Don't even think about it. Just get out of it. So there we go. There's proof right there, man, that these nukes are going to burn people up, okay? And a lot of men or people are going to be killed in this horrible sixth trumpet war, which we'll call World War III. And like I said earlier, the kill to wounded ratio in this war is going to be 1 to 10 to 17. So for every one person killed, 10 to 17 people are going to be wounded or have some other effect. Something else happened to them because of this war. That's most of the population of the world, man. That's going to be nasty. So if you happen to live through that, World War III, you're going to have to live through the tribulation years of the anti-Messiah and false prophet. And you're going to have to make it through those. And then at the very end of them tribulation years, a lot of people are going to be killed. Then comes Armageddon, and you'll have to survive Armageddon. If you're in the Middle East region, you're going to be right in the heart of the battle in Israel and Jerusalem through the Valley of Megiddo. And I think the outline, the outcome of it all is given to us in Zechariah. Where 2/3 will be cut off and die, and 1/3 will be delivered and live. After all that happens, okay, and the millennium reign's over, the 1,000 years ended, Satan's going to be released. Okay, it tells us that in Revelations 20, verse 7. And when the 1,000 years, the millennium reign, have ended, Satan shall be released from his prison, and he shall go out to lead the nations astray, which are in the four corners of the Eretz, Gog and Magog. That just means evil forces that are against Yahuah or Yahuah's people. But most people think that's a nation, but it really is the evil forces from the north. Okay. In Hebrew, to gather them together for battle, whose number is as the sand of the sea. Listen to that. The great number, sand of the sea, there's going to be a lot of people on the earth at the end of the millennium, right? It's going to be very few, maybe only 2, a man and a woman, or maybe 8, who knows? But there's going to be a small remnant at the beginning of the millennium reign because of World War III, tribulation years, and Armageddon, and the day of Yahuah. Going to wipe us out, man. Maybe 2, maybe 8, maybe 4, who knows? A very small amount at the first. And then at the end of the 1,000 years, going to be a number that can't even be counted, because a lot of them is going to side with Satan after he's released, which is crazy, but it's true. And then it says, and they came up over the breadth of the Eretz and surrounded the camp of the Kadeshim in the beloved city. That would be Jerusalem. And fire came down from Yahuah out of the heaven and consumed them. And so Yahuah put a quick end to the devil's plot to try to start another war with Yahuwah's Kadeshim and the people that were worshiping Yahuwah. And he said, this ain't going to happen. So mankind never fights that war. It never even begins. Yahuwah destroys it before it even gets started. And the people that he gathered together to march against the Kadeshim in the beloved city, he destroys them at the end of the millennium reign, okay? And the devil who led them astray was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur where the beast and the false prophet are. And they shall be tortured yom and night forever and ever. And I saw a great white throne. And then comes the great white throne judgment at the end of the millennium reign. And that's where Yahuwah will separate the goats from the sheep. And the sheep come into the reign of Yahuwah. And there's going to be a lot of people. And the goats get thrown in the lake of fire and destroyed, annihilated. Okay. So there we go. We can see now how the day of Yahuwah and the return of Yahusha are two separate events. They're really not the same thing, are they? They're two separate events, but they all happen at very close to the same time. Okay. Almost right on top of each other. They're so close to the same time. All right. I think it's pretty obvious at this point. We all should clearly see that. So look at Amos. Go to Amos 5:18. Amos 5:18 through 27. It says, woe to you who are longing for the day of Yahuwah. See, you're not supposed to, man. You're not supposed to sit there and wait for the day of Yahuwah and long for it. Oh, I wish the day of Yahuwah would come so he could burn up the guy that punched me in my nose when I was in 7th grade. You're not supposed to do that. Okay? So it says, woe to you who are longing for the day of Yahuwah. What does the day of Yahuwah mean to you? It is darkness and not light, as when a man flees from a lion and a bear shall meet him, or entered his house and rested his hand on the wall, and a serpent shall bite him. So it's not a good day, is it? No, it's not. It's not the day or the Yom of Yahuwah darkness and not light? Is it not very dark with no brightness in it? So there you go. So you're not supposed to long for the day of Yahuwah, look forward to the day of Yahuwah, or be glad at the coming of the day of Yahuwah. When all these things happen, you're supposed to look up because your redemption draws near. That means the resurrection, first resurrection is getting ready to happen. You're going to get your immortal body. Okay? Your redemption draws near. But you're not supposed to long for the day of Yahuwah. It's very clear here in Amos. So don't look forward to it. Don't welcome it. Don't wish it would hurry up and come or any of that kind of stuff. You're not supposed to do that. I have despised your festivals, and I am not pleased with your assemblies. Though you offer me burnt offerings and your grain offerings, I do not accept them, nor do I look on your fattened peace offerings. Take away from me the noise of your songs, for I do not hear the sound of your stringed instruments. And let right ruling roll on like water, and righteousness like a mighty stream. You brought me slaughterings and meal offerings in the wilderness for 40 years, house of Yisrael. But you took up Succoth, your sovereign, and Kian, your idols. These are like suns. They were worshiping stars in the sky, and horoscopes and astrology, that kind of garbage. Your idols, your astral mighty ones, which you made for yourselves. Therefore I shall send you into exile beyond Damascus, said Yahuah Elohim Zaboeth, his name. All right, cool. So don't long for the day of Yahuah, folks. Not something to look forward to. All right, so I'm going to wrap tonight's study up here in Psalms by reading a couple Psalms. I want to read Psalms 118, and then we'll wrap it up with Psalms 91. So go to Psalms 118. Psalms 118. Oh, give thanks to Yahuah, for he is good, because his kindness is everlasting. Let Yisrael now say, his kindness is everlasting. Let the house of Aaron now say, his kindness is everlasting. Let those who fear Yahuah now say, his kindness is everlasting. I call on Yah in distress. Yah answered me in a broad place. Yahuah is on my side. I do not fear what man does to me. Yahuah is for me among those helping me. Therefore, I look on those hating me. It is better to take refuge in Yahuah than to trust in man. It is better to take refuge in Yahuah than to trust in princes. All the nations surround me. In the name of Yahuah, I shall cut them off. They surrounded me. Yeah, they surrounded me. In the name of Yahuah shall I cut them off. They surrounded me like bees. They were extinguished like burning thorns. In the name of Yahuah I shall cut them off. The enemy pushed me to fall, but Yahuah helped me. Yah is my strength and song, and he has become my deliverance. The voice of rejoicing and deliverance is in the tents of the righteous. The right hand of Yahuah is doing mightily. The right hand of Yahuah is exalted. The right hand of Yahuah acts mightily. Let me not die, but live and declare the works of Yah. Yah has punished me severely, but did not give me over to death. Open to me the gates of righteousness. I enter through them. I thank Yah. This is the gate of Yahuah. The righteous enter through it. The gate is his name. I thank you, for you have answered me and have become my deliverance. The stone which the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone. This was from Yahuah. It is marvelous in our eyes. This is the Yom Yahuah has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. I pray, Yahuah, please save. I pray, Yahuah, please send prosperity. Blessed is he who is coming in the name of Yahuah. We shall bless you from the house of Yahuah. Yahuah is all, and he gave us light. Bind the festal offering with cords to the horns of the altar. You are my all, and I praise you. You are my Elohim, I exalt you. Give thanks to Yahuah, for he is good, for his kindness is everlasting. Hushenu, Hushenu, Rakabah B'Shem Yahuah. Maranatha, Maranatha, Maranatha. Go to Psalms 91, and we'll wrap it up. We'll wrap the nice evening study up at Psalms 91, if you will. All righty. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High, who abides under the shadow of the Almighty. He is saying of Yahuah, my refuge and my stronghold, my Elohim, in whom I trust. For he delivers you from the snare of a trapper, from the destructive pestilence. He covers you with his feathers, and under his wings you take refuge. His truth is a shield and armor. You are not afraid of the dread of Leah, of the arrow that flies by Yam, of the pestilence that walks in darkness, of destruction that ravages at midday. 1,000 fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it does not come near you. Only with your eyes you look on and see the reward of the wrong ones, because you have made Yahuah my refuge, the Most High, your dwelling place. No evil befalls you, and a plague does not come near your tent, for he commands his messengers concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They bear you up in their hands, lest you dash your foot against a stone. You tread upon lion and cobra, young lion and serpent you trample underfoot. Because he cleaves to me in love, therefore I deliver him. I set him on high, because he has known my name. When he calls on me, I answer him. I am with him in distress. I deliver him with esteem, and I deliver him and esteem him. With long life I satisfy him and show him my deliverance. Wow. There you go, folks. That's a wrap. Tonight's study. I hope you all got as much out of that as I did. Very powerful stuff there. And I think it's probably pretty obvious now to most of us what the day of Yahuah is and what the return of Yahusha is when it all happens, and how we can put everything in its own category and isolate it in there with its own events so that we don't get these things mixed up. Okay? Even though some of the same things happen, we know enough about each event now that we shouldn't have to get them mixed up. We can keep them in proper categories where they belong. And I'm speaking of World War III, tribulation years, Armageddon, return of Yahusha, day of Yahuah, restoration of the earth and Shemayim, the millennium reign, the destruction of the devil, the white throne judgment, eternal reign. All righty. So thank you all for being here. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming in and studying with me. Appreciate it more than you'll ever know. I love meeting with all of you every week and studying the scriptures of truth. Thanks for attending. Thanks for participating in the chat room there, showing each other love and being kind to each other. And I know Yahusha appreciates all that. And don't forget, don't forget about tomorrow. Okay, the Nazarene Assembly Scripture Study Group we do every week on the Shabbat. Same channel, same place, different time, It's 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So lunchtime, noontime, Eastern Standard Time, 12 o'clock sharp. We'll be here. So that's 11 o'clock a.m. for you Texans out there. And if you're over in Arizona, it's going to be 10 o'clock a.m. And if you're over there in California on the West Coast somewhere, at 9 o'clock a.m., you're going to have to get up just a little bit earlier. But join us. Now, I got a special announcement now. Tomorrow, we have a guest speaker coming on the Nazarene Assembly Scripture Study Group. And this guest speaker will lead us in Scripture study in the book of Yahuah or Joel. And the special guest will be none other than Phyllis White. So come join us and support Phyllis White as she leads us in our scripture study group tomorrow, right here on this channel, 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We ought to be fun. It should be enlightening, and we're sure to be beruked by Yahusha, who will be there with us and teaching us through his servant, Phyllis White. Okay? So be there or be square. And remember to stay in love with Yahusha HaMashiach. So long, Nazarene, beloved of Yahuah. So long, everyone. See you next week or see you tomorrow. Your choice. Peace, joy, and love to everyone. So long, folks.